work session of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 23rd day of December 2021. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So please remain standing and join me in a moment of silence. I don't always do moments of silence at our work sessions. I do them routinely at our regular town board meetings. These sessions tend to be more informal, but today one is appropriate because we've lost a friend and colleague. Jim Drew was a councilman for the town of Southampton from 1996 to 1999 during the Canusio administration. It is with sorrow that I inform you that Jim Drew passed away on Tuesday, December 21st. He again served this town as a council person, and the wake will be held on Monday, December 27th from 2 to 4 and from 7 to 9 at the R.J. O'Shea Funeral Home, 94 East Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays. A funeral mass will take place on Tuesday, December 28th at 10:30 a.m. at St. Rosalie's Roman Catholic Church, 31 East Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays. And although I didn't know Jim well, I certainly did know him and really liked the guy, a really terrific individual, very civic-minded, community-minded. And some of you, if you knew him better, can certainly add to that remembrance. But let's join together in his honor and his memory and send our prayers and blessings to his family members and friends as we mourn his loss and remember his life. So let's join together in silence. I know somebody's got an open mic. It's going to be a problem during the moment of silence, but let's join together in silence. Thank you. Is there any one of you who's more familiar with Jim who wants to say a word? Sunday, I think you knew him better than me.
Well, I remember Jim from my early days in town government, and he just was always a pleasure and very, very straightforward. He was just a stand-up guy, and he really made a difference in the time that he spent in town government. Was very well liked and very well respected. So it's a sad loss for the community, and certainly he will be missed.
I know I used to see him at a lot of the veterans events. I know that was something that was important to him. Was he himself a veteran? Do you know?
You know what? I don't recall that part, but he showed up for many different organizations, and he very well may have been, but if not, he was a big supporter, as he was of many other groups in the community too.
Christine, did you want to say something too? I know you knew Jim.
I didn't know him very well, but his reputation preceded him. I had met him several times and just was always a gentleman and just the nicest guy. And that's how he was known. And I know he has a large family, and our hearts go out to them.
Yes.
So again, the wake is going to be on December 27th, 2 to 4. And from 7 to 9 at R.J. O'Shea's Funeral Home in Hampton Bays on 94 East Montauk Highway. And then the funeral will be Tuesday, December 28th at 10:30 a.m. at St. Rosalie's Roman Catholic Church in Hampton Bays. Is there anyone else who's wanted to say anything about Jim's passing?
Sure, I got to meet Jim in some of the elections of 07 when he ran for town council, and in the brief time that I knew him, and then subsequent meetings, he's clearly clearly was a man of class and character, so he will be missed. And we appreciate his service to the town and the town board. His name's actually on the plaque of the People's Room outside the town boardroom.
All right, thank you, Councilman. All right, Sunday, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman,
Here?
Councilwoman Lofstad,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Bouvier,
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
All right, and for Julie, this is your last work session, because I don't think we're gonna have one next week. I'm gonna try to cancel that. So, and there's one more town board meeting, so I certainly would like to say a word or two about your service as well, but I'll save it for the next meeting. So what I'd like to do is to start with a update, as you all, in terms of the coronavirus, COVID pandemic. And I'm sure you're all following all of the news about Omicron, the variant that is now the dominant variant. And you probably have seen the lines at the testing facilities, which can be several hours long. You probably have heard about the shortages of home testing kits at the pharmacies, and seeing the spike in the number of positives across the nation, but particularly in Suffolk County and in our area as well. So I've asked Ryan, who not only is our public safety director, but also our COVID coordinator, to bring us up to speed in terms of guidance, any state changes or the numbers in general. And as we go into Christmas and New Year's, what is the best advice in terms of protecting ourselves and others? So, Ryan?
Thank you, Supervisor. Well, we'll start with the best advice and probably end with repeating the best advice, just to make sure we hammer it home to people. The best advice for everybody continues to be that the tools of vaccination are out there and are available to individuals. We continue to recommend that people pursue that option. We know it's a personal choice, but they have certainly been distributed to millions and millions of people at this point and have proven to be quite effective against spreading the virus in many cases. But certainly the most important aspect of why the vaccines are effective is making a person hit an immunity level that puts them in a position that they're not hopefully going to end up hospitalized, or if they do end up going to a hospital, they're not going to end up in ICU and or on a ventilator in ICU. Right? That's the key thing to remember here, is that although you may still get COVID, even if you've been vaccinated, we've seen that. I think that the phrase breakthrough cases has kind of fallen by the wayside. We know that you can still, get COVID-19 even with the vaccine. The same way for years and years now, if you got the flu vaccine, you could still potentially get the flu, right? But it wasn't going to put you on your back and render you out of service for days and days on end and make you suffer severe impacts from getting it. And that's the same thing that we're dealing with here, is trying to get yourself to a position that you're not going to end up in a hospital, that you're not going to become another statistic burdening the healthcare system in a hospital, because you made some of the choices that you made. So we want to make sure that we're doing our best to encourage people to get the vaccine if you haven't already done so. If you're hesitant, the Omicron variant of COVID-19 is definitely proving to be incredibly more transmissible than other variants that we've seen so far. It's really spreading quite rapidly throughout the population. So if you were on the fence on things and thought that you could avoid getting COVID, the presence of this variant and how easily it transmits from person to person spreading, maybe that's the factor that helps you, motivates you to go over to that other side and decide to finally get the vaccine, because the likelihood, I think, with the way that Omicron is spreading, the likelihood of getting COVID has increased significantly to people compared to even what it was before, because of how transmissible this new variant is. So we want to encourage that, and people that are due for boosters, that are eligible for boosters, we want to encourage them to get their booster shot, to maintain, reasonably high immunity levels, again, to put themselves in a position that hopefully they can do a good job of withstanding the virus. All of those cautionary, words and advice already mentioned, obviously add to that all the things that we know about masking, hand washing, covering our coughs and sneezes for good respiratory hygiene. Add those things to it. And now we look at the numbers, and, from December 14th to the 18th, what we see from the county's COVID tracker is that Southampton town's looking at about a 66 person a day spread, 66, 67 person per day increase in the number of positive individuals within the town. And again, that's 12/14 to 12/18 because the COVID tracker numbers are a little bit behind right now. There's so many people being tested on a daily basis. I think that there's just a little bit of catch up going on in terms of getting the numbers updated on the map. But if we look at the trends, let's go back to October really quickly. October 23rd to the 27th, we were at 13 people per day. If we wanted to go back further than that, we could go to like August and we actually hit single digits. But October 23rd to the 27th, 13 people per day. November 20th to the 27th, 19 and change people per day. We go to December 12th to the 14th, we hit 42.3 new positives in the town. And then shortly after that, the 14th to the 18th, we were at 66.5. We see how fast this spread is increasing. From October to December, you see basically about a 6 times increase in the number of people per day that are positive in the town of Southampton. That's not a good trend. And to be clear, it's really no different than anywhere else. We're not, in the county, we're not like the hotbed of spread within the county of Suffolk. We're pretty well on par with the general percentages within the county in reference to what our population is out here. But we're not like an area of safety where you can go outside and say, oh, I'm safe here and I'm not going to catch COVID here. You stand just as good of a chance of running into the virus here as you do anywhere else. So you really need to employ the same safety, strategies here that you would anywhere else. You can't be very cavalier about your behaviors and say, well, I don't need to mask here, or I don't need to worry about it. That's not the case. We expect that we're going to see with Christmas upon us and New Year's shortly behind it, we expect that we're going to see still increases with family gatherings and people that might have COVID and not even realize that they have it because it's in the early stages and it provides an opportunity to spread around. So we unfortunately expect that we're going to see these numbers go up. That's 66.5. That's as of the 18th. So, a couple of days later at this point, we're already 5 days beyond that. The number could really be closer towards 75, 80 people per day at this point. We know testing demands are up between the holidays, gatherings that people want to go to, kids coming home from college that, want to be tested before they gather with their family or that are going to need testing in order to be able to go back to school. There's a huge demand right now. And so we know that there are long waits, and we're in conversations with the hospital about possibly trying to bolster testing opportunity. Councilman Martell, you had asked the question about, Red Creek Park and the possibility of reopening last time. And I think we're at a very serious stage in our conversation with the hospital about what can the town do to support reopening that, even if it's just 2 or 3 days per week as another testing site alternative. And I have a follow-up call that hopefully will kind of bring that to fruition right after I get off here with the town board to see what we can do to make that happen sooner than later. we'd love to see it, potentially as early as next week as another alternative. And we'll see what we can make happen with that. Obviously, the hospital is vaccinating right now. They're testing in East Hampton. They're supporting a lot of operations, and they've got a lot of people coming in on a daily basis to the hospital. So we're gonna work with them as best we can to make that happen. To speak about hospital numbers, as of just the other day,
Brian,
the hospital. Yeah.
Before, two questions before you get into hospital numbers. One is, are you going to mention the county is opening up a testing facility? That's on
Yeah.
your list at
That's
Gabreski?
on my list. Yes.
Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And in terms of the positivity rates, does that account at all for any of the people who are getting home tested?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Because in
Those
the early
statistics
days,
won't show up in there.
that wasn't an option. So we had everybody getting tested. So there might be a lot more positives than are being reported.
Yes, there could be. So we'll stick on testing for a second before we move on to the hospitals. And yes, there could be, and in all likelihood, there are many more people that are home testing and perhaps finding out that they're positive. By that means that's not tracked by the health department. The only way that statistic would enter into the system is if that individual reported it to the health department themselves, or tried to seek some sort of an isolation order for the purposes of isolating from work or whatever. Then it might get into the system. Typically, home testing is not used as a satisfactory mechanism of proving positivity for the purposes of, release from work or school or things of that nature. And those individuals, if they've tested at home, would then go out and seek some sort of a PCR rapid test from a healthcare facility, which would then provide them with documentation to show that they in fact were the tested individual and what their testing results were. So if they did get a secondary test on top of the home test, just to prove results, then it would enter the system and be a number that was tracked. But just the people that are taking an at-home test and have the ability to then, isolate or take action on their own as a result of the test they administered themselves, those numbers aren't part of the tracked numbers in the system. That, as you mentioned, sticking on the testing aspect of things, the county is supposed to be opening up a testing site at Gabreski. We expect to see that open. Supervisor, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe as early as next week. I think the county's goal is to have that open on the 27th, last I heard.
Mhm.
And
I have that
that will
information. Yeah, so.
that will hopefully alleviate some of the burden. It's on the west end of town, so it's a little bit further if you're coming, obviously from like Bridgehampton or Watermill area, but it's another testing site in our area to try and absorb some of the demand that people have right now for testing.
This is what the message from the county executive is that, Monday, the 27th, it will open. It'll be every Monday. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a hybrid school community testing location. It's drive-through testing. There's no appointment that's necessary. They can accommodate up to 600 people per day. And it's going to be at Francis Gabreski Airport. And they're saying to enter on Cook Street, 1 block south of the entrance of the airport on the left. And if you're using GPS, use 56 Cook Street, West Hampton. So that's the current information I have for that site. And
So, Supervisor, would it be possible to have that in some form of writing that we can get out to our local civic groups out here at least on the West End, and I would imagine other areas, so that we can distribute that more widely?
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to get it up on the website too. We put up a list of like 30 different testing sites on the website the other day, so that to try and make it easier for people of where they might look to get testing. So we can also add it to that information. We didn't want to get it up there too soon, that people went to the site and didn't find anything there and then were frustrated by that. So I think probably day before it opens or day of opening, we'll add it to the list of available sites too on the website, so that people know that it's an option, and they don't end up going there and finding nothing and just, getting more frustrated.
And Ryan,
This would,
I texted Ryan that information that I just read, so he has that too, so he can help get that message out to the community.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And this would include our current testing centers, right? Or the testing centers in Southampton Town at Parish Memorial Hall and some of the other places that currently exist.
The list has all of them on it. Yes,
Okay.
and any of the privates that we're aware of as well. It's got, you know, any of the like the chain pharmacies that are offering testing, like your Rite Aids and your CVS's. There are a couple of other facilities within the town that we're aware of, and one or two doctors' offices that we've also included on there. It's about, I want to say it's about 30 different sites that we've already got on the list that are available for testing that people can reach out to if they're seeking some sort of testing.
You know, I should mention on the testing front, with Ryan's help, we were able to secure 120 test kits from Suffolk County for our police department. So that's going to be very helpful too, because they're out in the field all through the holidays, and I think it's going to be important that they, you know, we can't have them sitting on a line for 3 hours waiting to get tested. So I think it's important that you know, that we're able to do that. And I want to thank the county executive and Lisa Black from his office as well for making that happen.
Yes, we picked those up yesterday and they were delivered to the police department, to police headquarters last night, so that they're available to them over the next, you know, week or two, to be able, particularly over the next week or two, with all the holiday gatherings and activities, that they can do some in-house testing to be able to rule out COVID as a possible, you know, issue to the department for the members there. We also, you know, we don't have any.
Before we move on to the testing, please include the East Hampton Center for Humanity. It's on Stephen Hans Path. It's in the western part of East Hampton, very close, of course, to the eastern part of Southampton Town. And they've been serving residents, our residents of Bridgehampton, Sagaponack, Sag Harbor area as well. And other, you know, folks, if you want to drive out there and get tested.
I'd have to pull the list up, but I know we had at least one or two East Hampton locations already.
That's probably in there. Okay, thanks.
It might be one of them. Yeah, we actually, when we put the list together, it's got a location or two in Manorville and outside of the town limits on the western end. It's also got some locations outside of the town of Southampton on the eastern side too, because we recognize that those sites may be the most accessible site to some of the people on the far ends of the township. And if there's an inundation at sites within the town, we wanted to provide some options that were, you know, as close as possible just outside of our limits to people as well. So it might be one of the ones on there already. If it's not, we'll get it added as well. The news is out too, and we don't have any additional information at this point in time, but the news has certainly been out that the federal government intends to send at-home testing kits out to residents throughout the country. As we become aware of any information on that, because I would imagine that the intention is that the federal government will provide the testing kits to the states, and the states will provide them to the counties, and they will be distributed out in some mechanism from there. If we become aware of any of that, we will share the information with people so that they know what's coming. And certainly if we have the opportunity to actively engage in that process to expedite it and get them into the hands of our residents, we will do that as well to get them out as fast as possible. I mentioned Red Creek and that we're looking into it and actively engaged in conversations about that. The hospital, we have a tremendous partnership, as always, with the hospital in town. Southampton Hospital is a great asset to us and a good partner to the town. They are conducting vaccinations back at the Greek church again. They continue to have ongoing activities, you know, at the hospital as far as vaccination and testing. They've been working regularly with the town's senior services division, and senior services has been shuttling a lot of our seniors that are engaged in their programs to the hospital every single week for their booster shots. That's a tremendous effort by the hospital and Liz Dwyer and her staff in senior services, and certainly deserve some accolades for the efforts that they're making to continue to ensure that some of our most vulnerable residents maintain their immunity levels by getting them their boosters. There was a huge effort by senior services back when we did the original vaccinations, and we commended them for those efforts then. And this ongoing effort to make sure that people get boosted certainly deserves some recognition from us for those efforts to keep them at high immunity levels to be able to resist COVID-19. The hospital, as of the 22nd, had 13 COVID positive patients that were admitted to the hospital on that day, of which 4 were in ICU. One of those 4 was actually on a vent. That was unfortunate news, because up until this point, most of the ICU people were not finding themselves getting to the position that they were on vents. Typically, it's about 30% of whatever the COVID population in the hospital is that find themselves migrating to ICU and having their symptoms escalate to that point. The hospital is, although it was 13 people that were admitted, they're seeing many, many people in the emergency department on a daily basis that are coming in with COVID and are being sent home to just recover from it at home. Their symptoms aren't such that they require hospitalization, and they're being sent home to just kind of ride it out there. And if their symptoms worsened, obviously they would go back to the hospital. And they are also seeing a decent number of flu patients presenting at the hospital right now too. So not only are they dealing with the issues of COVID, but they are getting people that are coming in on a daily basis that are also suffering from the flu. So we're adding that to the mix, which wasn't thankfully a real problem last year, but is presenting to be more of a problem for the hospital this year. More people with flu than they had in the previous year. So we certainly, are appreciative of the ongoing efforts and dedication of the hospital and their staff to both the vaccination efforts as well as the testing. And we are going to do our best to continue to work with them and support them as they, try and keep our residents safe from COVID. I believe that between testing, procedures to try and avoid COVID, the current status with, the hospital, and some of our efforts to try and increase testing availability in our area, that pretty well covers what I have as far as a COVID update. Happy to try and address any individual questions that might exist.
Ryan, quick question, the state guidance. So has there been any changes? Right now, you still have to have a mask in public places, correct?
That is correct. Any indoor facility outside of just a private residence, you are supposed to be masking in those places. We have it as a policy at all town facilities right now, and private businesses. I believe most of them. There may be a few out there that are letting people come in without a mask if they're vaccinated. To be clear, that is not what the mandate allows. You are not allowed to mix and match according to the health department mandate and have vaccinated people come in unmasked and unvaccinated people come in masks. The way the mandate works is you have 2 choices. That's it. 1, everybody is vaccinated, or 2, everybody is masked. There is no in-between mix and match option allowed under the health department mandate. All right. This is to help stop the spread as we see this surge happening with Omicron. And I think it's a wise choice to follow the rule and mask up and try and minimize your exposure potential.
Did the state promulgate any other restrictions, like in the earlier days of the pandemic? There were limits on how many people could be at a social gathering. There was limits about restaurants, how many could be sitting at a table. So the only guidance we have right now is the one you just mentioned, right?
Just the masking mandate right now. There are no other restrictions in place at this time other than masking.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan, would you speak to what restaurants need to do as far as, I believe it's a 100% proof of vaccinations for their patrons?
No, they fall into the same category as everyone else. If it's in any indoor facility, restaurant, shopping center, mom and pop shops, businesses that are more like office settings. Doesn't matter what the location is. If it's an indoor location and it's not a private residence, the two choices are either 100% vaccinated or 100% masked. That's it. Those are the only two choices. Many restaurants out there are choosing to go the vaccination route so that their diners can have a sense of comfort knowing that they're surrounded by other vaccinated individuals, because obviously in the process of eating and drinking, you're going to have your mask off. So they want to make sure that people feel comfortable when they're at that point. So don't be surprised if you don't see restaurants out there that are electing to go the 100% vaccination route. It doesn't mean that you can't order takeout from them or pick up curbside. I'm sure they're still doing that type of business as well, even if they're maintaining 100% vaccination policy for their indoor diners. But those are the two choices that exist.
Okay, and currently vaccination means 2 doses at this time.
Yes,
Right.
that hasn't.
I believe you said that. I'm
changed
just
yet.
underscoring
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Yes.
No, but for a restaurant,
Vaccination is 2 doses, is considered completely vaccinated. At this point in time, it's typically 14 days outside of your second dose. But we keep reminding people that, and we want to foreshadow the future here just a little bit, in that at some point, we have an expectation that we'll see a change from either the state, county health department, or the federal government, indicating that if you're not boosted, you're not considered fully vaccinated anymore. So we don't want people to be surprised if that moment comes where the definition of fully vaccinated is that 3rd shot.
Thank you.
and for restaurants that don't have a vaccination only policy, yes, it's understood obviously that while you're eating, you have to take the mask off. But at the other times, you're supposed to have the mask on.
Yes, the way the mandate is, if you're not actively eating or drinking, even if it's a restaurant, you are supposed to be masked up inside.
Any other questions? And the enforcement of these rules are through the county and I guess the locality. Right?
Yeah, the state, shortly after issuing the mandate, had said that they would not be enforcing the mandate. The way it's written in the health department regulations, it places the burden of enforcement onto the local health department, which for us would be the Suffolk County Health Department. We are getting calls into 911 from people, just as we did earlier in the pandemic, complaining about people not masking appropriately, or what they feel to be people not masking appropriately. You'll recall back in the early days of the pandemic, we did get calls from people that were complaining about people not wearing masks, out in the middle of nowhere on a beach. Obviously, if you're, greater than 6 feet away from other people and enjoying the outdoor activities, you don't need to be, masked up. But we are getting calls. Southampton Town Police Department, Southampton's public safety aspects, code enforcement, fire marshal's office, et cetera, are responding to those calls to educate and inform either businesses or members of the public as to what they should be doing in accordance with the current mandate from the state of New York.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions for Ryan? All right, as always, Ryan, thank you for keeping us up to date during this now 2-year-long plus pandemic.
Thank you.
Crazy how long this has been. My son, who's 19 years old, it's, more than 10% of his life has been under a pandemic. It's crazy to think about. As you walk around and see everybody masked everywhere you go, and it's hard. It would have been hard to imagine a few years ago that would be Southampton Village or downtown Manhattan or wherever it is, to that would be the normal. So, but anyway, thank you, Brian.
March 7th, 2020 was when the then governor issued the state of emergency for the state of New York. It's coming up.
So we're not technically 2 years yet?
Well, no, it was bubbling, or, you know, like it was here.
Yeah, it
And
was
by
2 years
March
ago.
7th, it was well
Yeah.
into the population.
2 years ago, at this point, I think a lot of people were still under the belief that it was more isolated to just like the Wuhan area, although we've learned since then, obviously, that it was already spreading throughout the world.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's amazing how this one variant from, that started out in South Africa, apparently, so quickly became the dominant variant. It was just only a couple of weeks ago where we didn't have a single case in the United States that was known. And now it's the dominant one. Crazy, overnight, blink of an eye. So, all right, thank you, Ryan. All right, board, the next item on our agenda is to go over the draft agenda for our December 28th meeting, Julie's last town board meeting with us. Let's see, that meeting is going to be held at 1 p.m. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. So, the organizational meeting, which is on the 5th, will be in person. And we've been noticing now for public hearings to be in person too. And that, stay tuned, because that may have to change. We may have to go right back to Zoom based on the high prevalence of the Omicron variant. So that's an easy enough switch to do. We might have to do that. My hope was starting in 2022, we'd be back to in-person meetings. I just don't know that we can keep to that. So this will be 1 o'clock. It'll be a Zoom meeting. And we have 2 public hearings. The first is Chapter 254, the Town Code, peddling and soliciting. It's an amendment to that chapter. And the second public hearing is an amendment to Chapter 19-5. This is of the Town Code entitled Public Safety Commission Powers and Duties. And I think it's giving them some additional powers. Hey, Ryan, what is that to?
But I can actually explain that if you don't mind. This is,
Outdoor seating at restaurants? Yeah, go ahead.
I've been asking for this. It's kind of a cleanup of the code. A lot of things that take place in the peddling and soliciting haven't taken place for probably a decade. It's about where people are fingerprinted, et cetera. We now have the Department of Criminal Justice do that for our office rather than code enforcement. So it's cleaning up just a lot of housekeeping. And housekeeping, this is the particular section of the code where the appeals are supposed to be heard by another board, but they're still in the town board's realm. And if you remember back, there was a particular hearing you were going to hear in Hampton Bays, and it was disposed of, but we're just trying to clean that up as well. So rather than another board take on the appeals process for the peddling appeals, which we get very, very few of, the Public Safety Commission is going to take on that role. So I talked to them about it, and Sean Cambridge has been working on this as well, and we've been
The basic change and the first public hearing really regarding peddling and soliciting, that's just a housekeeping resolution. There's some cleanup of it.
For the most part, yes, Mr. Supervisor. There are a couple of distinctions. We add a 30-day period in which the applicant who's denied has a time frame to appeal. We previously didn't have a set time frame, which leaves open-ended appeals. So things like that, we cleaned up timeframes, we cleaned up practices of what the office does versus, what was in the prior code. And then there were some loopholes too. If you had applied for a peddler's permit in a corporate name, you could forego providing your license or car insurance or things like this. So we cleaned that up to make those practices match what we want people to submit for peddler's permits. So it's very consistent with our practices, with the standard practice and best practice for this area. And if there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer them, but these are all housekeeping and basically consistency edits.
Counselor, is it fair to say that these two public hearings are companion legislation?
They are, yes. The second public hearing just gives the Public Safety Commission the power to hear these appeals. They're in tandem, they're working together. And as Cindy had alluded to, the basis of most of these appeals is usually going to be somebody's criminal record. Public Safety Commission is very well versed in evaluating that. They know what to look for in, say, an instance where it's going to be a certificate of relief from civil disabilities. They understand what these documents are, how to consider them. I've spoken with the board pretty extensively. I would highly recommend adopting these.
Do we
And if
have,
I could, I would just like to thank Councilman Bouvier for finally helping us get this done, because we've been trying to get this done for many years now, and Sean for jumping in and picking up where it left off before the pandemic, which held it up for another couple of years. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Sunday. And I do characterize it as housekeeping. It's just been something that's been on the books for a while, and it's caused these problems. I think moving it over to the Public Safety Commission to review the appeals, as Sunday said earlier, it's a very rare occurrence to begin with, but this just cleans up the process and just makes it a lot more easy for the town to manage, and certainly for the clerk's office to manage.
Thank you.
is there an adopting resolution in the packet?
So there is one on for the second public hearing to give this board the authority to hear these. And then for the following meeting, there's a resolution of adoption for the peddling and soliciting amendments. So we're authorizing them on the first meeting, and then the following meeting, we are changing the code.
All right, it just that Councilwoman to be McNamara might not be present for the hearing, but maybe she will be watching the Zoom meeting so that she'll be up to speed when it comes time to voting on the other piece. All right.
It's a change for the better. I just want to stress that. It just all around makes a lot of sense just to make this process operate more smoothly and in the right place.
Sounds like it makes sense. Okay, so those are the two public hearings. Then we'll get to town board resolutions. And the first one, John, do you want to read the first one?
Yeah, Town Board Resolution ID 39175, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to accept a donation to the Community Housing Opportunity Fund from Camino Gardens Limited.
Okay, 39049 is authorizing the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Sag Harbor for fire marshal services.
39152, authorize the supervisor to sign amendment to contract with York Labs for the Hampton Bays Water District.
39164 authorizes the supervisor to sign contract extension for liquid propane gas with Starlight Propane Gas Corporation.
39165, authorize the supervisor to sign contract extension with Mercury Marine for Mercury Marine parts. 39145, authorize the supervisor to sign contract with LMMCO Services Incorporated.
ID 39170 is to authorize the supervisor to sign mortgage satisfactions on community development block grant loans.
39125, authorize the purchase of a 2022 Tahoe SSV from Dean Chevrolet Incorporated from New York State, OGS contract.
ID number 39124, authorize the supervisor to amend a consulting contract with H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, et al. To provide on-call engineering services to the Hampton Bays Water District.
Okay, next is 35019, authorize the supervisor to sign and execute 2022 cooperative agreements with neighboring villages for the town to provide shared computer services.
ID number 39168, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension for irrigation maintenance and repair with Burn & Son Irrigation Incorporated.
39160 authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract extension with J&V Auto Salvage, Inc. for removal of abandoned junk and decommissioned vehicles.
ID 39161 authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Waste Zero for the supply and distribution of garbage bags.
39126 authorizes the supervisor to execute a donation agreement with Marcus Pena, member of Boy Scout Troop 483 in Hampton Bays, for a donation to build a butterfly garden at Good Ground Park. 39176 authorizes supervisor to execute a lease renewal agreement with the Suffolk County Office of the Aging for a 14-passenger bus.
39199 authorizes supervisor to execute an agreement with Questa Incorporated for the upgrade of Questa software.
Town Board Resolution ID 39153 authorizes supervisor to execute an extended consulting agreement with Peak Power Long Island to assist in developing education, outreach, sustainability, and waste management programs. ID 39167 authorizes supervisor to execute an extension with Great Northern Fibers LLC for private or municipal markets for disposal and recycling services for mixed paper and corrugated cardboard. ID 39166 authorizes supervisor to execute an extension with Spectre Manufacturing Incorporated for a closed top shelf contained ejector trailer with hydraulic roof opening.
ID number 39163 authorizes supervisor to sign a contract extension for printing and mailing of Hampton Bays Water District bills with Questmark Information Management Incorporated.
39162 authorizes supervisor to sign a contract extension for replacement parts for Chevrolet General Motors with Eagle Chevrolet. 39198 authorizes supervisor to sign a license agreement with Audio Enterprise Group. 39156 authorizes supervisor to sign a time extension contract with West Hampton Beach School District. 39067 authorizes supervisor to sign consultant agreement with Susan Western to assist the Southampton Town Police Department to implement the Lexapol software system. 39179 authorizes supervisor to sign Parks and Recreation agreement for fitness class. Tommy John.
39200 authorizes supervisor to execute a master services agreement with CSC Holdings LLC.
All right, and the next one is Tupper Boathouse. I think that we might have the sponsorship reversed here. I probably should be Councilman Bouvier, no? 39123.
Go ahead, Councilman. Thank you, Supervisor. Town Board Resolution ID 39123, I guess co-sponsored with you, Councilman Schiavone, to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Eastern Architects LLP for architectural and engineering services for Tupper Boathouse.
You want me to correct anything here?
Yes, you can take my name off of that and clearly, yes.
I'm happy to co-sponsor it. This is a special project doing for a long time.
Tommy John, do you want to co-sponsor it?
No, that's fine.
All right, yeah. So
I do support it and I'm going to vote yes, but you know, I know Councilman.
Okay, we'll remove your name. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so next one, 39171, reject bids and second notice to bidders for Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Flashing Beacon. John, you're next.
ID 39074, co-sponsored with Councilwoman Lobstad, is a 2022 notice to proposers for Lobster Inn Park Capital Project design.
All right, 39186 is 2022 notice to proposers RFP for furnish and install an integrated parking management system. And that's all of you are co-sponsoring that. 39115 accepts payment and amends the 2021 adopted budget for the police. 39148 adopts Town of Southampton travel reimbursement policy. We had discussed that at a work session. 39111 amends the 2021 adopted budget for town police for special events. 39149 amends the 2021 budget for various departments, housekeeping resolution. 39154 deposits money into escrow account for professional services in connection with the site plan ZBA application for Bridge Petroleum. 39177 restore New York Round 5, accepts Empire State Development ESD grant and allocates payment to owner of 20 Riverlight Avenue, Riverside, as per grant disbursement agreement. And 39120 authorize additional funds for legal services by Vincent Toomey Esquire for 2021.
Town Board Resolution ID 38982, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, so amendment to Chapter 19-5 of the Town Code Public Safety Commission to enable the Public Safety Commission to have the power and duty to hold public hearings to consider an applicant's appeal based on the denial or revocation of a peddler's license. This was what we discussed earlier.
Right. 39172, notice of adoption to amend Chapter 330-37 Industrial Districts Table of Use Regulations to include physical fitness facilities as a special exception use in the light industrial LI 40 and the LI 200 zoning district. 39188 is a notice of adoption to amend Town Code Chapters 330-162 special exception and 330-33 table of use regulations listing self-storage facilities as a special exception use in the highway business zoning district. And I'm assuming that those will be eligible for votes. I think we got LD, local determination, from the Suffolk County Planning Commission. I think we have gotten now input from the planning board on those as well. So, but I will double check. John, you're next.
ID 39131, co-sponsored with Councilwoman Lofstad, is a resolution of adoption amending Town Code Chapter 123 building construction as it relates to effective period of building permits.
Right, we had that hearing too. Okay, the next is 39143, amends the 2022 commercial applications fee schedule for the Department of Land Management, Building and Zoning Division. 39144 amends the 2022 electrical applications fee schedule for the Department of Land Management, Building and Zoning. Do we need a hearing to amend the fees?
I was told we didn't, but I don't have an answer for that.
It's possible we don't. Does, Christine, do you know?
You're
sorry.
muted.
Sorry,
So-
what was the question?
The question was, so I'm reading resolution on page 51 of the packet, amend the 2022 electrical application fee schedule for the Department of Land Management, Building and Zoning
Mhm.
Department. And I'm just wondering whether that we need a public hearing
No,
before to amend the fees. We don't?
no, the fees are done by resolution, and they're separate from the budget.
Okay. All right, 39142 amends the 2022 residential application fee schedule for the Department of Land Management, Building and Zoning Division. So those are also changes in fees. 39141 authorize the supervisor to execute the 2021 amended groundwater monitoring protocol for Sabonic Golf Course. That's something we had discussed in the work session with Marty Petrovich. Councilman Scavone, you're next.
ID number 39159. This is approval of 2021 junkyard permit for Wallace Fleming Junkyard.
Okay, I don't think the next one's supposed to be in the packet. I'm not sure how this ended up here. So
I had understood that he had accepted.
what?
Are you talking about 39042?
Yeah, that we're
Yeah,
waiting.
Jay,
waiting-
no, it's okay. We got this approval. We got in touch with Suffolk County.
They established the list?
Not officially, but they confirmed that this individual passed.
Okay. Thank you. That's
That's
news to
That's
me.
why, that's why it's there.
Okay, because didn't want his present employer to know that he was moving over to here until we were actually knew that that could happen. All right, well, that's wonderful. I mean, Nick Jimenez will be incredible in that post. I participated in the interview. He's exactly what we need and has an exhaustive resume in terms of capital projects management. And I'm happy to see that we're able to make that happen.
Yeah, Tom had taken him around to look at a lot of our other projects, so he seems very excited to perform these duties. So it's a good addition. I'm really happy, particularly when it comes to the West Hampton Beach Community Center as well.
Yep.
We had a tour already, and it's just great to have him.
Well, he's been involved with other community centers, with other animal shelters, with other playing fields, and a lot of things that are similar to the things that we do, dock work, bulkheads. All right, so 38641, authorized reimbursement for drug court judges' attendance at the Association of Drug Court Judicial Training Conference. 39183, notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Brocard Development, Inc., and to amend CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
Excuse me, I have a note that this has the Zoom meeting information in it for the public hearings, that it wasn't revised to mirror the other ones that you've updated.
Yeah, so what should we do about that?
You can just take out the last three.
The last three paragraphs, the
Yeah.
notice.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suspect we're going to end up on a Zoom meeting anyway, but I think that we should at least try to notice it for a actual in-person meeting like the others to make it consistent. So, yeah, so Sunday, since this is just a draft, can you change that?
Absolutely. So we'll do those last three paragraphs, Christine,
Yes.
and then it'll be fine.
Yep.
So just a procedural question. If we do switch back to Zoom, that shouldn't pose a problem, right? What we're changing here, how would we change that back? Or would it just be because we're changing everything back to Zoom? So it's just included in that? I don't know if I'm.
I would have to do some kind of emergency declaration, I think.
Okay.
So, I mean, if not, we'll have it in person, but we may start as, this is for January 11th. It's possible as we start to set public hearings for later dates, we'll go back to Zoom.
Okay.
So, but this one, if we can do it in person, we will. If it's, too challenging from a health perspective to do it in person, then I'll declare a localized state of emergency and we'll shift it and we'll do our best to let people know. I'm not sure how we do that, but I guess we'll how do we do that, Sunday? We do the notice?
Well, your office has quite a bit to do with that as well. Janice Wilson, has the emails for all the CACs and interested parties and newspapers and such. So she puts out, and as soon as you make any sort of declaration and any of this changes, she will put together a press release on your behalf for you to send out to notify everyone.
Okay. So yeah, we'll
Post it
set
on the
that-
website and we put it on the town clerk portal and we'll put it out everywhere where people normally look for the information for these meetings.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not expecting a lot of people at that hearing on Brocard. And then the other ones, I think is similar, 39180. This already says in person, so we don't have to change it. This is a notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of James J. Manusoff and amending CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. And then 39184 is a public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Irene Mahoney, Troutman, Linda Mahoney, and William Mahoney to amend the CPF management plan and stewardship plan to include those properties. That's up in, I think, North Sea area. The Manusoff property is on 24 West Shore Drive in Southampton. And I know the Brocard one is near the North Sea landfill or transfer station area. All right, then the next one, 39187, is a notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Susan E. Shimada, Credit Shelter Trust for water quality improvement purposes. And this is out in the Flanders Riverside area. And that already has the in-person language too. And then 39181 is a notice of public hearing to amend Town Code Chapter 330-248V entitled Canoe Place Inn, Canal and Eastern Properties Maritime Plan Development District, Section 3 entitled Permitted Uses, subsection B entitled Canal Property Parcel 2, and to add subsections 8A, B, C, and amend Section 7 entitled Conditions, subsection 7 and 12. So this, we did talk about, and I believe in a work session. So this is the boathouses and the Canoe Place Inn, and they're looking to use the boathouses in conjunction with the hotel, and there's a willingness on their part to not only give us the easement that we haven't been able to get because it required an easement through the county locks, and as well as under the railroad tracks, and that has not been forthcoming and likely will not be forthcoming. So there's a condition we can't meet. But they've also been willing to do two other things. One is to take what would have been the pedestrian right of way and really move it right to the water, or in some cases onto the water on that floating dock, to make it I think a really special public access where you'd be able to park, go down to a viewing platform, and then walk along the water the entire distance to the northern end of that property where there's another viewing platform. The other thing, and I have to thank Councilwoman Lofsted for this, and we have to work out the details here, but Councilwoman Lofsted raised the issue of property tax impacts. And Julie, I've been meaning to call you about this, but so I spoke with Greg Reckler on this, and he said his intention is not to pay lower property taxes. In fact, he wants to make sure that the various tax entities are not harmed or injured in any way by this change. So we're working on a mechanism where basically the assessor would determine what would have been the property taxes had it stayed the townhouse development versus a hotel development. And each year they would pay that difference, so that all those entities would receive no less than they would have had this zone change not occurred. So I'm working with the attorneys in terms of how we manage and do that, but we can certainly make that a condition of any approval. So thank you for that. I think there was a really good point. And I appreciate the Reckler's willingness to address that issue fully. So that's a good thing. All right. 39182 authorizes acquisition of lands of Michael. Oh, one other thing on that public hearing for the boathouses, it is an amendment to a PDD. And I know that we have, I'm skipping one here. I know that we had eliminated the PDD law. So this is a modification of an existing PDD. I do believe it still will require a supermajority vote as the basis because of the old PDD law that it's under. So, okay. Any questions about that one? If not, we'll go to Tommy John's resolution is next.
Right. Town Board Resolution 39056. Thank you, Supervisor. This is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Article 5 of Chapter 298 of the Town Code to raise the income eligibility for senior citizens with limited income for real property tax exemptions. This mirrors the New York State law, which passed last year. And what we are essentially doing is raising the exemption by $2,000 in all the categories, as you all can see, and we'll certainly have a public hearing on that in January.
Okay.
Excuse me, this resolution also references video conferencing in the second sentence of the first resolved. I think if you just remove the video conferencing language there, maybe the rest can remain.
We normally would add the address, Sunday, just say, Southampton Town
Okay.
Hall, 116.
Okay.
And then take out again the last 3 paragraphs of that notice.
And
The last 3 paragraphs, I don't, oh, you mean on the, yeah, I see. Okay. On page 76.
Yeah.
Okay. And Councilman, this is something you've been working on?
This was brought to me by Lisa Gorey, so yes, but I give her credit on this, and this allows us. There was state enabling legislation which allows us to do it. So it hasn't been changed in some time, but we'll get those details in January.
Okay. All right. I'll move on to 39182, authorize acquisition of lands of Michael S. Aronoff to and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. So that is a subject of a hearing. Or is it not? Did we already hold that hearing?
Huntington Lane, yes.
Yes, you
Yes, on
did.
December 14th.
Yes, December 14th.
All right, so, and then we probably left the record open. All right, so, or not, we might have closed the record on a CPF one. Okay. So hopefully that's eligible for a vote. 39193, authorize acquisition of lands of Dorothy Marcioch and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. We held the hearing there too. Sometimes we leave the written record open, but probably it'll be closed by the time.
You left many of the hearing records open, Mr. Supervisor, but you did close them in time to vote for the resolutions at the next town board meeting.
Oh, good. Thank you. 39194 authorizes the acquisition of lands of Burden, Kathleen J. Kempler, Robert E. Burden as co-trustees and Robert E. Burden as sole trustee, and amends the community preservation project plan and the CPF management and stewardship plan to include those properties. That's that waterfront assemblage in Watermill on Mill Creek that would potentially create a really nice hamlet park there. All right, John, you're next.
ID 39130, road review application for Boot 9 Corporation, Suffolk County tax map as indicated in the resolution, situate at Hampton Bays is accepted.
All right, and then there's a couple of add-ons, or maybe just one add-on?
I think there's just one.
All right, so 39205 would appoint George Mutu to the planning board. Let me just say a word about this too. So we haven't filled the seat vacated by the passing of Phil Keith. His term on the planning board expires this month. And so this would be a new 4-year term. George Mutu is a highly skilled individual who worked in the planning department, was a town engineer for the town. He is obviously an engineer and a planner, and
I'm gonna have to move out in about 5 minutes. Sorry, I'm on a Zoom meeting.
okay, Julie.
Sorry, no, I was talking to somebody else. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
It's okay.
if you could. So, but I did get to speak with George. He expressed an interest. He's I think would be a highly a highly qualified appointment to the planning board and bring a great deal of experience to it. He's right now the administrator over at Eastern Suffolk BOCES, I believe. So
The facilities manager at BOCES.
Facilities
The whole-
manager.
Yep.
So John, do you want to say a word or two about George?
I think you said it all. I'm very impressed with him, and certainly his background and knowledge of town process and planning, as well as engineering. I think he'll bring a good skill set to the planning board. And I'm actually pleased and a little surprised and pleased that he wanted to do this. And he's a volunteer fireman in West Hampton Beach Fire Department. He's real good community guy, his lovely wife and family. I just, I think he's very qualified to sit on the planning board. So I look forward to that.
So, yeah, so I'd like to add that to the packet if nobody has any objections. And is there any other resolutions or any other questions about the agenda? All right, are we okay to authorize Sunday to publish it with the changes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Sunday. That's a
And if
wrap.
I don't see any of you on the next couple of days, have a wonderful Christmas or a new year, whatever you're celebrating. I'm looking forward to 2022 and hopefully less pandemic business.
Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Sunday. Thank you.
Don.
Be
Thank
well.
you for all your work throughout this pandemic. I noticed too, yesterday, I think you were the officiant at 4 different weddings.
I certainly was. Other people are wrapping up their year-end business as well, getting married. So we had a busy day. We used the town boardroom to make sure we were socially distanced and everybody could have their family members and friends with them. So yes, but thank you. Yes, it's been a long year and everyone's worked very hard, and we appreciate all of the town board support throughout all of the projects that we work on your behalf and our constituents' behalf. So thank you very much.
Merry Christmas to
You,
you.
son.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So the only other, well, I guess we can do updates if you want. I don't really have anything to update you guys on. So we did the COVID update. There's nothing else that's pressing at the moment. If there's anybody else have any announcements that they want to make before we move to go to executive session?
Yes, I do. A big moment for the town of Southampton. Our CCA legislation that Fred had brought forward was signed by the governor yesterday. It's a big deal. As you probably know, we have an administrator in place. The PSC, the Public Service Commission, had authorized CCA back in 2016. But some of the issues with LIPA in particular were problematic. And I just want to thank Assemblyman Thiel and Senator Kaminsky, who had sponsored the Senate version of this to make this happen. It's a big deal for us. It allows us to overcome some of the complexities of the life service territory and rate schedule. And as a result, Southampton was one of the first was the first, I think, on Long Island to initiate CCA, and this we were now one of 4 on Long Island to do that. This will make it this is a big step forward for us to make that happen. So big thanks to Assemblyman Thiel for this. It was a lot of work, a lot of big thanks to Lynn Arthur and our Sustainability Committee, Frank Sapone, who's just been, hammering away at this. So many people to thank. I won't waste a lot of the board's time, but this was a big sustainability issue, and that we got solved, and look forward to the results of it.
Now,
So
this clears up the confusion about whether it's authorized where you have a municipal type of utility like PSC, well, LIPA, PSE&G. So there was some confusion there within the other law as to whether you could do a CCA where you had an entity like LIPA. But now you,
it's unique on law. It's unique. LIPA is unique in the state of New York. CCA has been approved in over 60 municipalities around the state of New York, and half of those are now energy independent. And as you know, we have a goal to do that, to have energy independence in the town of Southampton. So this is a very big tool for us to help achieve that, as well as our gas emissions goals going into the future, and the state goal alongside that.
well, thank you for working on that, John, and congratulations. So I'm assuming in 2022, we can continue to move forward on the CCA enabling whatever it is that we have to do at the town to make that happen.
Yep.
So,
The next step is that we'll probably meet with LIPA and work out those details. But this is the big hurdle that we've overcome. So thank everybody. I know a lot of you guys have voted to implement CCA and worked right alongside us to do this, and so this is good work. So thank everyone.
all right, thank you. And any other updates or announcements?
Yeah, I have a couple. I had my last North Sea CAC meeting, I think it was last week. They talked about, they're interested in wondering where the marina legislation we were working on last year went. So if it does move forward, I would hope that you would reach out to the North Sea CAC. They are very interested in having some input in that. Also, they were very thrilled with the news about the Tupper Boathouse Stewardship Agreement. Very happy. So I was glad to be involved in that. It was I was involved in it in the beginning of my career, so it's nice to see it to kind of come together at the end. And the very last of my CACs, I thought it was kind of cool. It was the Hampton Bay CAC, and they talked about a bunch of stuff, including traffic issues. But I think that the best presentation of the evening was from James Cappers from the Hampton Bays Water District, who did a phenomenal job talking about all things water district, and how things are looking up, and how much effort both the water district and the town board are putting into making it top-notch water district. So thanks to James for doing such a great job. And that's all I have today.
That's great.
Well, Julie, I'd just like to thank you. As you mentioned, we started out on the Tupper Boathouse project, I think at the very, very beginning, and long meetings with CPF and long meetings with the North Sea Maritime Center and all those folks. So appreciate that, and I'm going to miss your counsel on this, and your working alongside, working together to get this accomplished. But you know what? We set it in motion, and it looks like we're just about there. So I will miss you.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
We have one more meeting with Julie, so one more town board meeting. But we're all going to miss you, Julie. You've done a terrific job, and you've fought so hard, not just for your community, but for the whole of Southampton. And I like to try to encourage people like you who, don't see themselves in any way as politicians to take their love of the community and actually run for public office and, slug it out here with the rest of us trying to make a positive difference for their community. So we appreciate all the years that you've put in, and all the time, and all the meetings, and the patient listening, and trying to, craft legislation and support legislation to address community issues. And you will definitely be certainly missed by me, but missed by, I think, the entire board in the community. So thank you for your caring and your time and all that you've done.
Well, thank you very much, but we got work to do. So I got another, I think, 8 days. So I'll work to the end.
And I hope you're not a stranger after that, because we need your voice, as a small businesswoman, Hampton Bays resident, a commercial fishing person. We need you to keep telling us what the needs of that industry and that community are. So I hope you stay involved.
I don't think you have to worry about that.
All right. All right. More at the next meeting. All right. So in terms of executive session, we're going to discuss acquisitions. We're going to get some confidential legal advice, matters pertaining to litigation. And that's all I have. I don't have contracts or personnel. So just those two issues. So I will make a motion to end our work session. Oh, I guess before I do, I have to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Of course, be safe, but I want everybody to enjoy this holiday season, in a safe but wonderful way. So please take the time with your families to cherish your loved ones and enjoy this this moment of giving. We all know what the season is about. And we could use that right now after 2 years of pandemic. So I just want, on behalf of myself and the community, just wish everybody a Merry Christmas. We'll have another meeting before New Year's, so I'll save the New Year's wish till then. But if anybody else wants to send a wish, and then we'll go into executive session.
Yeah, I'd like to say happy holidays to my colleagues here on the Zoom call. We've worked together for a number of years, and to everyone else watching this. I know this is going to be played over the holiday season, so we have more to do with this pandemic, and I know it's been a tough year, so spend quality time with friends and family. Happy holidays.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that, and particularly I'd like to thank our staff, our town staff, who worked so hard and gone through so much. I know an extra day here or there off with your families is tokenism in terms of everything that you guys have done. So to all staff, happy holidays, and thank you so much for everything you do. It's so much appreciated.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone, and everyone stay safe, please. Relax, enjoy your families, and let's get healthy for 2022.
And Merry Christmas and eat lots of cookies. Thanks, Christy.
And a reminder to people that Town Hall will be closed on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve as well. But just a reminder. So if you need to get work done, come in today. So come in on Thursday, because Friday we will not be open. All right. So I will make a motion then to end our work session and go into executive session for acquisitions and legal advice. So I'll take a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier, and then we'll adjourn for all other purposes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're going to do this via a telephone. So you guys